What's going on? It's Jason Heath. We're talking today with Noelle Marty, who did the Pacific Crest Trail. Such a cool experience. I really hope you enjoy this conversation. Had you done anything big like that before?
No, I had never done a backpacking trip that was more than 2 or 3 nights. So that was my first time out for a long time. Yeah, I would definitely recommend anyone thinking about doing it. I would definitely recommend doing it, but I totally understand it's really hard for a lot of people to kind of drop everything.
So I would assume you've seen that. Is that movie called Wild?
Yeah, so I was, I actually hadn't seen it. I knew it existed. Big Reese Witherspoon fan here. So, she's awesome. And I hadn't read the book. And once I got on trail, so many people asked me if I had read it. I ended up downloading Audible, buying a subscription to Audible and listening to the book. But yeah, it was cool. I mean, it's a good book. Yeah.
No, it's a great book, and I'm not sure if it would encourage you or discourage one from doing that. But like, I think about that first day of her on that hike, and did you have a Reese Witherspoon experience early on, or what have I gotten myself into? Or
it's really funny because as soon as I started listening to the book, I was like, wow, Reese Witherspoon's character, whatever, Cheryl Strayed, she actually started. So I didn't do the whole trail. I did about 4/5 of it. So I did 2,100 out of 2,600 miles. And I started actually in the same place that she started. So it was, my first day on trail was pretty rough. Honestly, so my mom and her friend drove me from LA and dropped me off. I started Tehachapi, Mexico. Tehachapi, which is 555 miles north of Mexico, where the trail actually starts. My first day was about 100 degrees. I started at 11 a.m., which was a really bad choice. My pack, there was about a 30-mile water carry. So I had about 8.5 liters of water in my pack and a bunch of stuff I didn't need. And the first thing I did was I did this huge 6-mile climb out of Tehachapi, and there was no shade. And at one point I found this one Joshua tree and I just sat underneath it for an hour and a half and cried because I was I was so just overwhelmed and pretty, worried about getting heat exhaustion. But, after that first day, I'd say generally things got easier. The first day was not my best day.
Well, weeping under a Joshua tree, that's like a total from that movie. I
did not feel like I was in a movie at that point. I felt pretty bad, like I was in over my head a little bit, but yeah, I luckily didn't have too many bad moments like that. Obviously there were a few lows, but definitely overshadowed by a lot of great moments.
So I can only imagine. I mean, what a cool way to see. Well, what a cool thing to do for 1,000 reasons. But just I'm a relative newcomer to the West Coast. I have family in California. I have family up in Oregon and Washington. But I mean, just to watch step by step this crazy gorgeous landscape that transform from way down by Mexico, that's a pretty harsh landscape if I remember what you're describing, to this gorgeous Canadian, I don't know if you're in the Rockies at that point, or the Canadian Cascades or whatever.
No,
but
to the North Cascades. So basically you start out, I didn't do as much of the desert as a lot of my friends that I met out there had started at the very beginning, and they did 700 miles of desert. So I only did about a week and a half of true desert hiking, but it's cool because you go from the desert and then all of a sudden you're in the Sierra Nevada, and the high Sierras, which is just so stunning and incredible. And then you leave the Sierra and you're in Northern California, which is beautiful. And, you go through Tahoe, which is just incredible. You actually overlap with the Tahoe Rim Trail for about 50 miles. But I had to walk through a lot of smoke, and I actually had to do a lot of skipping around the wildfires. I was there when the Dixie Fire was kind of starting up, as well as a couple of other fires. So some of the landscape in Northern California is really lush, and then some of it is a lot like the desert. And then Oregon is forested. You do Three Sisters Wilderness, which is obviously very dramatic, mountainous. And then you go into Washington and it's super remote. It's rugged. It's, you're really out there, and the mountains are just so stunning. It's really cool. And when I was there, it was turning, to autumn. So I got a lot of those fall colors up in the mountains, which was also really amazing.
Wow. Yeah. Too bad you got that was when all that was happening with Northern California. That was one of my probably way too many questions I have for you. So, did you get close to any fires? Did you have any scary moments, or just a lot of smoke?
Yeah, so some of the smoke, luckily, so I didn't have service for most of the trail, but I had this device called a Garmin InReach. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. So it's like if you're ever traveling in the backcountry, I would recommend getting one because it's a great tool, and it keeps you connected and it's good for emergencies. But there was a number I could message that would give me the local fire updates, because there were a couple times where I started walking through smoke and I actually didn't know if there was a fire nearby and I didn't have service. So I would message this number and it would tell me, how far away the fire was from me and like what the containment percentage on it was, and that kind of information, which was helpful. Overall, I'd say it was mostly smoke and I wasn't as close to fire, but there was one fire. I think it was when I was leaving Tahoe and I was going through, I think it was Carson Pass. I could send you the picture over Facebook or something if you wanted to see it. I was smelling smoke and I turned around and I saw like this huge plume of smoke and I was like, oh crap, and I walked really fast because I was getting to this highway crossing where I knew that someone was there with there were these people out there called trail angels who just help hikers. And there was this trail angel who was apparently giving out soda. So I was like, I'm going to run away from this fire and go get some Mountain Dew. And I got there and there were, huge airplanes flying over, obviously to put out the fire. They drop water or whatever they drop. Sorry, I don't know. And they closed down that part of the trail about an hour and a half after I got through, which was pretty crazy.
Wow.
And I had to skip 180 trail miles because of the Dixie Fire from Truckee, California to Old Station, California. And then when I was walking out of Old Station, the AQI was almost 180. So it was pretty miserable. But, other than that, with the smoke, I wasn't necessarily near any active fires, which was pretty lucky. And that wasn't the case for other people who either were there later than me or people who were doing the trail southbound, who had to skip all of Northern California. So I was lucky I didn't have that happen to me.
Wow. Any other things people like any animal encounters did you run into any bears? Did you have any scary things come your way? I'm thinking back. I'm from South Dakota and I had these bizarre bison, I guess they are, encounters camping out in South Dakota, which you might think bison, who cares? Well, they're kind of scary when they come up to your tent and they're rooting around.
I actually think bison are one of the biggest people killers or something. I took this wilderness first responder class before I left, and apparently there's a lot of accidents with bison and people. So I don't think that's an unreasonable fear. I didn't have too many crazy animal encounters. There's a lot of, I saw a lot of marmots, very cute. I actually am the only person on the PCT who didn't see a bear. I'm pretty upset about it. It's a touchy subject for me. I wanted to at a certain point. I was like, come on, let me see a bear. And I would be walking with friends, a mile ahead of them. And they'd be like, oh, did you see that bear we passed? And I was like, what? No. I saw a lot of deer, a lot of elk. Like I said, I saw a lot of pikas, marmots, rattlesnakes. Those are kind of scary. A lot of, just a lot of smaller creatures. Actually, at the border, the Canadian border, when I was there with my friends, we saw a huge bull moose. It must have been 1,000 pounds or something. It was crazy. I watched it cross from the US into Canada, and I was like, that's beautiful. Kind of scary, but beautiful. It was looking at us. We were like, oh gosh, it's mating season and these animals are pretty stupid. So we were kind of worried it would come over and try to mess with us, but it walked away. So yeah.
Wow. So that day one sounded rough, and it was uphill from there. I got figuratively, literally, whatever. But how did you feel a few days? Because I really need to unplug. It's been a while. I used to try to get away and get all my devices and crap out of my life, and it's been a while since I've done that. I'm, with no service and that sort of thing, hiking for, what was it, 117 days? How'd you start to feel as you got into it? Did you feel, I don't know, maybe that's a bad question, but how once you got into it, what was your mood like?
Like honestly, I was just super happy almost every single day. It was awesome. Yeah. Like your only responsibility is just to walk, and it's great. And you have so few decisions to make every day. It's I feel like just like a really nice, simple way of living. Like all you have to do is just like essentially just keep yourself alive and walk, you know? Um, yeah, just even like small things, like just not having your phone. Like I was super, I almost never reached for my phone. The only thing I used my phone for was for the maps that I was using. Most people use this app called Gut Hook. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's kind of like the gold standard map for the PCT, and I know for other long trails in the country. But besides that, I didn't even have the choice to use it most of the time. But yeah, it was awesome. Like, yeah, again, really simple way of living, just not having to make, just like really simple decisions every day that we have to make. Like, what am I going to wear? It was like, I have one pair of shorts and one shirt, and like, it's kind of disgusting that I've been wearing this for like 10 days, but it's nice that I don't even have to think about, what I look like or those kind of things. Yeah.
I've never done anything that long like that, but I've always heard like you start to feel disgusting, but then you just sort of like stay that you don't get like progressively more disgusting. You're just sort of like this dirty person out in the wild, but it's kind of fine. Like, did that kind of feel that way for you after a while, or?
Yeah. So you just get used to being that gross. I mean, yeah, like I tell people, I'm like, I didn't wear deodorant for 4 months because it doesn't even make a difference. I mean, you are really disgusting. I think the longest I went without a shower was 11 or 12 days. And that was maxing it out for me. You do after a while, you're like, oh gosh, I need to wash my clothes because, I only had one of everything, especially on a long trip like that. You really don't bring any extra anything, only exactly what you need. Then you just hope that nothing happens to it. Yeah, what's really interesting is you get really smell blind. So you can kind of smell yourself, but you cannot smell the other people around you. And everyone's saying like, oh man, I feel disgusting. I smell gross. And it's like, I can't smell you. What you can smell is the day hikers and people who are coming, straight in from town. You can smell Tide detergent. I swear to God, from like half a mile away, I'll be like, a day hiker is coming. Like that smell, like the smell of deodorant and perfume and detergent and everything is so powerful. Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? Those things, like I probably reek of laundry detergent. I don't even know it,
Yeah, exactly.
I'm thinking back to hike. I like hiking. I've never done anything even remotely like that. But that feeling of like being out. I was in the Boy Scouts when I was little in South Dakota, and I remember like getting to camp and drinking water. It's like the best taste of my life, or like eating some almonds. Like what'd you bring in terms of food and that kind of business?
Oh gosh, like I mean, I tell people I just shoveled garbage essentially into my body for 4 months. You're kind of in a constant battle to just be eating enough calories, and I definitely stood to lose a little weight before I started, but it got to the point where, I was like losing weight too quickly. And it's like, you'd think that for something where you're like doing something really athletic, you should be paying attention to like eating vegetables and everything. But it was like ramen, Norse pasta sides, candy. There was one week where I felt so like weak and calorie deprived that I was putting butter on Snickers bars, which sounds disgusting, but in the moment I was like, this is awesome and really good. And you can eat whatever you want, which is great. But yeah, just a lot of like simple carbs, quick energy. What's really crazy is how in tune you get with like how food makes you feel. So like you'll be like, oh, I have this 5-mile climb with 2,000 feet of elevation gain or something. And you're like, I need to eat like 250 calories right now. And you eat like a Snickers bar and then you're just like flying up, But yeah, just a lot of stuff like that. Essentially just anything that's as calorie dense as possible while being as lightweight as possible. So the general rule of thumb was like 100 calories at least per ounce of food.
Wow.
Yeah.
Buttered up Snickers bars. Wow.
Yeah. Kind of embarrassing to say out loud, but it really did help me.
There are probably a lot of highlights, like in terms of like if you had to like pick 5 moments to kind of remember forever, and you probably have way more than that, or pick whatever number you want, but any particular, I mean, seeing that moose sounds pretty cool. Any particular views, or get to the top of a peak? I mean, you've named so many things that are probably just epic, but any standouts for you?
Oh yeah, there's a lot. I'll start at the beginning. Getting to the Sierras was really cool. The Sierra, I don't know if you've ever hiked there or been there. It's really spectacular. Probably like one of the best days on trail was when I went over Forester Pass, which is the highest point on the PCT going into Kings Canyon National Park. It is so beautiful. And I actually did that pass at like golden hour. So it was like, when the sun was going down, it was just like really special. I'd say like in Oregon, doing Crater Lake, there's an alternate where you can do Crater Lake instead of the normal trail. So I took the alternate. If you ever do the PCT, I don't know why anyone would ever not do that. Crater Lake's awesome. Really beautiful. In Washington, pretty much all of Washington is like, I don't know, the Cascades are really cool. There was this section around mile 2500 of the PCT where I did this ridge walk and I could see Mount Rainier, Mount St. Helens, and Mount Baker, as well as like 10 layers of mountains in the distance with all the fall colors. It was probably like one of the best days of my life, which sounds kind of like an exaggeration, but truly not. And then, and there was one other I wanted to mention. Oh, the Goat Rocks Wilderness. Really, really cool. That was the first time I could see Mount Rainier. And that was awesome. It's like all these ridge walks. And then I did a side trip up this mountain called Snowy Peak, which was cool because actually on the PCT, a lot of the times you're not doing a lot of like peak bagging. You're doing a lot of passes and ridges. So it was cool to kind of like actually go all the way up a mountain.
Wow. I have these great memories. I've a decent amount of family in Seattle, and I have memories of flying over Mount St. Helens in the 80s when it was still smoking. My uncle was a pilot. I had a little airstrip bed. And I just remember many memories of visiting Washington State and Seattle. It's like in the winter when you're like on the coast and then you look up and it looks like Mordor or something in the mountains. And
it's great. Washington is so beautiful, and it's lucky it's so beautiful because the weather is miserable. The last 2 weeks I was out there was horrendous weather-wise, but like it was still really stunning. So I was like, okay, this is fine.
Well, I was going to ask how much you got rained on or possibly snowed on. I don't know if maybe not snowed on, but so Washington was rough weather-wise. Southern California sounds like was rough heat-wise at the beginning of it.
Yeah, the one day of rain I encountered before Washington was the day I was going up this ridge called Bear Ridge, and I got hailed and rained on one time in the Sierra Nevada. Literally didn't see rain until I got to my last 2 weeks in Washington. It'd been I spent about a month in Washington, and we had kind of some on and off rainy days, which is fine. When it rains one day when you're out backpacking and then the next day it's dry, it's okay because you can dry everything out. My last week and a half, 2 weeks, it rained every single day, all day. And all of my stuff, I kind of tried to keep my dedicated sleeping bag and sleeping clothes dry, but it was pretty hard. My feet were never dry, which is mentally seems really silly, but was really difficult for me to put wet shoes on every morning. There was one morning where I woke up and my shoes were completely frozen and I couldn't get them on because a lot of the temperatures at night were reaching mid 20s. It just rained pretty much every day the last couple of weeks. And then it did snow the last couple of days. So I felt lucky that, me and my friends got there when we did, because I know a couple of people at this point who haven't been able to finish the trail because of high snow.
Yeah, you're reminding me all the reasons why I don't want to move to Washington State. It's like that, especially as we get into the winter here.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, my rain jacket was just soaked through. You couldn't get anything dry. I started wearing a trash bag over all my stuff, so I was just walking around with a trash bag all the time. Yeah.
I thought a lot for whether I'd rather have it be. I remember being playing a couple weeks with the Oregon Symphony, and it was in February, and it was 34 degrees and rain the whole time. And I thought I'd rather have it be 24 degrees and snow, just about anything, because I get this sort of desperate feeling when I'm wet, and I've never had anything even remotely like what you're describing, but I'm getting this sense of panic just thinking about constantly being wet. And yeah, that wet feet thing, that's got to be a crazy Bummer.
Yeah, I mean, it was more also like a safety concern. Like there were definitely times towards the end where I was pretty scared of getting hypothermia. And me and other people started just sharing tents at night just to keep warm because, like our gear wasn't really adequate for those temperatures. My water filter froze, which means it doesn't work anymore. So I was just drinking unfiltered water my last like 10 days on trail.
Your immune system had morphed into something else.
Yeah. So I heard that I decided to not care because I had heard that Giardia takes approximately 2 weeks to set in. So I was like, oh, well, I'll be home by then. So it's fine.
Did you ever think I'm bailing? I'm done with this? Or did you ever have any moments? I mean, I guess if I was getting rained on like that, that might be a moment for me with my frozen feet, but
I mean, if that had happened towards the beginning, maybe, but I was so close to the end that it was like, it's fine. I didn't have any serious moments where I thought I'd quit. I mean, there were certainly a lot of moments where I was like more uncomfortable than I could have ever imagined, like heat wise, or just, getting really close to having pretty severe heat exhaustion. Just you get used to being pretty uncomfortable, and like knowing that things, realizing how things always work themselves out. So I didn't really ever have any serious moments where I thought I'd quit. Like I always felt like it was going to be okay. And that moment of being uncomfortable or being really upset were pretty temporary.
well, I should forgot to ask, where are you from originally?
I'm from Boston originally.
Okay.
Boston, like the suburbs.
Okay, Boston area. Okay, got it. Had you what's the second biggest physical thing you've done? Like, were you into mountain climbing, or had you done long bike rides, or what?
Yeah, so I had done a lot of hiking in the area up in the White Mountains. Once I, kind of like I'd always heard of like the reason I ended up deciding to do it was, I'd always heard of the Appalachian Trail and thought that would be kind of like a cool bucket list thing. And then when the pandemic hit, I was spending a lot more time outside. And then I found out about the PCT and I was like, that's like the Appalachian Trail, but with like real mountains. So I'd rather do that. Not to, Appalachian Trail is cool too. But yeah, I'd done a lot of like East Coast hiking. And once I had decided I wanted to do the PCT, I ramped that up a lot. So probably like the biggest physical day I'd ever done in the mountains was the day I did I don't know if you know Caroline Samuels.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so Caroline Samuels and I did the presidential traverse in the White Mountains together as a single day hike, and that was like 20 miles and like 10,000 feet of elevation gain, and that was especially that was really rough, especially at the time. But like on the PCT, the thing is like, it is physically challenging. And most days you're hiking anywhere, I'm hiking anywhere from 20 to 30 miles a day. I think my biggest day was like 33 miles. But the trails out there are a lot more forgiving than on the East Coast. So I was actually pretty surprised by how easy a lot of the climbing was. How nice the trails were, because they're meant also for stock, because it's also an equestrian trail as well as a hiking trail. Whereas on the East Coast, when you're hiking, I don't know if you're familiar with like New Hampshire mountains, I mean, you're just bouldering the entire time. Even this past Sunday, one of my friends from the trail is from New Hampshire and she was around for a week. So we decided to do, have you ever heard of the Pemi Loop?
Yes. Why do I know that? Is that part of the Appalachian Trail up there?
Yeah, it overlaps with the Appalachian Trail. So it's this 32-mile loop that goes around the whole Pemigewasset wilderness. So it's like 32 miles and about 10,000 feet of elevation gain. And me and my friend, her trail name was Sherbert. So me and Sherbert went out and we're like, oh, well, we just hiked thousands of miles, so we're going to do a single day Pemi loop, and we did it. And at the end, we were just completely destroyed. This was my first day where I didn't feel just like awful from doing that. And I was like, oh, wow, I really forgot how much harder it is to hike out on the East Coast than the West Coast.
Well, I've heard if you're doing the Appalachian Trail and you're headed north, like that main part is just like an absolute nightmare. I think I think it's A Walk in the Woods by Bill Bryson. I think I'm remembering that right, but it's this very entertaining Appalachian Trail sort of journey. But yeah, I've heard that about East Coast trails. Yeah, okay, interesting. Wow, so I was going to ask, like, so you're not taking time off from hiking? You having done this, so you get back from this and you're back at it not too long after that. That's cool.
not crash, you know. I feel like if I sit still, I'm just going to get really sad. So I'm trying to keep myself occupied.
How did it feel to come back to the modern world or whatever, like after something like that? Well, like, was it weird to have cell phone service, or did it, because, like, you know, I forget how many times, I don't think I'm like the most addicted to my cell phone out there, but how many times do I think I pick this up a day? Probably a couple hundred, right? At least, like, add things to my grocery list and all that kind of nonsense. Like, did it feel weird to come back to the modern world?
Yeah, super weird. First of all, yeah, having service all the time. I'll say on a positive note, you really, when you're out there, you kind of get used to how tasks like are difficult, if that makes sense. Like every single little thing you do has like 20 more steps than it would at home. Like getting water is like you have to walk down to the river and then get your water and then filter your water. You want to go to the bathroom, sorry to get gross, you know, you have to go dig a cat hole. You know, it's never easy. So definitely coming home and being like, oh my gosh, look, just like a sink, you know, with water. And like, I get free water forever. I don't have to filter it. But it was definitely like, oh, this sounds weird, but like sensory overload. Like I went to the mall with my mom and I was like, oh my gosh, I got to get out of here. Like it was making me feel like really, really overwhelmed. And, you know, just I was away for so long. So just like seeing my friends, being called by my real name all the time, because I haven't been called that in a while. I was like, whoa, what? But definitely coming home is overwhelming. And obviously it was such an incredible experience. So like, I'm really happy to be home to see everyone, you know, get to play bass and everything again. Cause you know, I didn't get to do that for a while. Bass isn't exactly a portable instrument, but yeah, definitely just, you know, it's bittersweet, I guess, being home. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. What was it? Yeah, what was it like getting back? I mean, I've taken, for better or worse, probably worse, I've taken breaks that long from bass myself, not because I was hiking the trail like that, but like, what was it like coming back and like soaking in all that nature for months and then like starting to play some scales? What was it like getting back into it? Or maybe you haven't done much yet. You just got back pretty recently.
Yeah, I tried to play it. So I think like all of my like upper body muscle has just like atrophied or something and got my lower body because I tried to play and I was like, oh my gosh, I've lost like all the muscle. But I mean, it was nice. I'm excited to get back into it more. Obviously, I came out to visit my family, so I haven't had as much of a chance to play since I've been back, but I have a couple gigs lined up, which I'm pretty excited about since I haven't done a performance in a while. So I'm looking forward to it for sure. And I feel like I have kind of like fresh mind to go play again and like, you know, work on things and see things in a different way, I guess.
It's got to be. I don't know how the pandemic has been for you, but like getting out in nature has been like very therapeutic for me this last. I mean, it's always therapeutic, but I'm if I had to be trapped in a city, I'm glad I was trapped in San Francisco because there's a lot of natural beauty here, and I try to go out. I went out for 9 miles with the dog yesterday. You know, I come home and I feel awesome.
Yeah,
it's got to be. No matter what year or whenever, going out and doing something like what you did has got to be cool, but it's got to be maybe even extra therapeutic during these pandemic times that we're hopefully clawing our way out of.
Yeah, it was definitely, I mean, I didn't really think about the pandemic that much out there. Yeah, you're kind of separated from everything. I mean, you don't even hear when, you know, there's big things happening. Like I hadn't heard about like the Delta variant. And then I remember I went into town in Northern California and Oregon to do, you know, you go into town and do your resupply and laundry and stuff. And all of a sudden it was like, you need to be wearing a mask. And I was like, what? You know, like there's been another wave of COVID. I had no idea, you know? Yeah. It was definitely nice to not have that on my mind for sure. I felt pretty grateful.
Well, so if you already went out and did a massive day hike coming back, you're not like giving up hiking forever. Do you have any doing something that like, do you think maybe the Appalachian Trail is in your future or some other? Do you want to do something big again and then in the near or moderate future?
I mean, yeah, I would love to. I'd really like to do, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Continental Divide Trail.
Yeah. Is that so? Is that running up and down the Rockies? I'm guessing.
Yeah. So you start, it's Mexico to Canada, and you go through New Mexico. You go up, you get to go through like Glacier, I think, and Yellowstone, and you go through like the all the mountains in Colorado. Yeah, it's like a much more rugged version of the PCT, which I felt like would have been cool to do now, but I didn't have the experience to do something like that. But now I feel like I have some experience under my belt and I could probably handle doing something like that. But I'm definitely going to need a couple years. But I hope I can fit it in again. I hope that's not the last time I get to do something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as soon as it was done, I was like, man, I want to do that again.
That is so cool. Well, yeah. Where are you living these days? Are you in where are you? Okay, so you're from Boston. Where, and obviously you're in France right now, but where is home for you right now?
I have an apartment in Brighton, which is kind of like a neighborhood in Boston.
Okay.
Yeah, so I do some teaching at Somerville High School through Boston Chamber Music Society. I'm hoping to have more performances coming up. And then I actually work at REI as well, who gave me they gave me a leave to go do the hiking. So I'm going to be starting back with them again in a couple weeks.
Oh, what a cool gig. That's great. Wow, what a fun balance.
Yeah, fun part-time kind of job. Would recommend for anyone. Great discounts if you like being outside and want some gear.
That's great. Yeah, it's great. Well, yeah, you got me inspired. I gotta go do some more hiking now.
Yeah.
I just saw that pop up and I thought, like, what a cool journey that must have been. So really excellent.
It was amazing. Yeah. If you ever get the chance to do it, definitely get out there and do it. It's cool.
Yeah. I had this really inspiring chat I was flying to Australia in 2019, and this really sort of normal looking middle-aged guy was sitting next to me from Australia. And then he just started telling me these stories. He's like, every few years he's done something over the top, and he kayaked the Pacific, like just this bonkers journey. He did like a Land Rover journey over the Sahara, all these just like, and you're just looking at this like really just sort of like, I would never expect, it's just like totally like not athletic looking person, like that, totally out of shape. And then I was like, boy, I want to do one of those things someday. And then, which he probably hears a lot. And then he's like, just go do it. There's no reason not to. So that's why I could sit here saying, oh, wow, I should do that. I should just get off my butt. And so maybe I will. Now you've inspired me.
Yeah. You gotta just quit it. You gotta quit everything for a few months.
Yeah, but what a great way. You gotta feel like everything's gotta seem so insignificant or manageable, or like going through a journey like that, and then you come home and you gotta like handle email. That's gotta just seem so.
Yeah. I will say though, my stress level has never been lower. Like I got home and I felt very I was like, there's nothing that could stress me out. I don't know. I feel very refreshed, I guess. So yeah, I'm not too overwhelmed being home.
No, that's what I've heard. Well, first getting out and unplugging like that, and then just like massive amounts of cardio that does something to your body. It's like people have said, if you could package that as a drug and sell it, everybody would be addicted to it. That's what
like anyway. Before, you were literally happy. Like even when it's like a bad day, you were just happy 100% of the time. There was like not a day where I wasn't like, first of all, like this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, and second of all, like I'm having the time of my life.
Thanks again for watching. Check out Noelle's Instagram. That's linked up in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.